of the CGDS, IGDS, which is not in keeping with the level of productivity of the staff of the institute. And I do feel that the university needs to recognize this and provide a proper home for the IGDS. The second thing, which I think is a very real threat, coming from the global education thrust, new higher education directions because of the whole economy. People are looking at technical areas. Even children at school now, their career plans, they're asking, how can I get a job with this? What skills is this giving me? I am not going to do humanities. Humanities are airy-fairy things. How is this going to affect gender and development studies in the academy? And how can we counter that? Because I think that it's an important, important aspect of our work going forward. Joycelin mentioned the whole business of not forgetting our past, but we are going to have to change. The change has already started. We're going to have to challenge the barriers which exist. And there were calls from several of the researchers and the papers for change, for new thinking, for things to happen. But the change must come with continuity, as Joycelin mentioned. We must know where we're coming from and what our goals and our principles are. And we may need to look at our role, our mission in terms of activism in order to effect that change, you know, in terms of how we look at our mission there. And the fourth thing, which I think is very important, is succession planning. I don't think that, I don't know if we have been doing sufficient succession planning to ensure that the institute doesn't sort of fall by the wayside. You know, we need to have a cadre of young men and women who can become the new leaders of the IGDS for the next generation. Some of them are here in the room, but we need some more, and I think that's important.
Barbara? Thank you. You asked me to respond about the impact of our work internally and externally. I think I've been a little disappointed in terms of our internal impact internally, in terms of shifting the balance of power in the institution. I know Mark has his own thesis on that, and that will, with time, it will happen. But I still think that we have not had the sort of impact that we could have had on our internal. I think we have been institutionalized in terms of structure, but not in terms of system and process. And that's a gap I think that we really need to pay attention to. I personally think that we have been more successful in our external impact. And I think that the expertise of the center across the university is sought after nationally, regionally, internationally. You just have to look at the number of countries that have asked for our help in terms of generating national gender policies, the work we have done with CARICOM, the work we have done with international agencies, COMSEC, the UN itself. I think that we're recognized, very, very highly recognized externally, and the expertise. But I think we have a responsibility there to build a critical mass of persons with the conceptual understandings and the analytical tools that can offer. And I think the development agenda post-2015 is going to be demanding gender mainstreaming skills and strategies. And I think we have a tremendous opportunity to provide that pool of expertise at all levels, not just at a PhD level, but every level of technical expertise that's needed to do the kind of work. That is going to be not optional. It's going to be a requirement in the development agenda going forward.
And you have the last word, Joycelin? No, frightening you? No. Oh, the penultimate word. As I close after this.
No, okay.
Oh, sorry, Rhoda.
Yeah.
You see? Nearer to God.
Yeah. Okay, well, she asked me whether at the institute you're forgetting the development part of your mandate. I don't think you're forgetting it, but I think that there are parts of it which are not as pronounced that they probably should be. Because if we think of development as referring to the social, the political, and the economic, and the cultural, I'm thinking that there's a gap around the economic aspect of development. And that is reflected, for example, in this conference program. It is reflected also in the conference program in terms of some of the topics on which papers have been presented. And part of the problem there has to do with the descriptive way in which these things have been presented, and not necessarily an analysis of what are the policy implications and what can the Institute do, if anything, in order to make those policy recommendations effective. Yeah? Some of it has been done, as Barbara has said, in the area of education. That was before, but now we are on to something else now. And when we look around at what is happening in the region and what's happening to our economies, how they all seem to be in a state of, I don't want to say collapse, that's too dramatic, but they're in a state of abeyance. You know that there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get our people to understand what these things mean. What is GDP? What is this? What is that? What is the other? How does that affect you at the household level? How does it affect you as a woman who is trying as a female head of household? How does it affect you? You know, those kinds of issues, I think, are missing from the program, and I think that needs to be addressed in the next couple of years.
Thank you.
Yes, I think that the program is in a way affected by the whole impact of the neoliberal paradigm. And all of that has affected the approaches to activism, towards knowledge, etc. And I think some of the points that Elsa made are important. Now, in terms of critical dimensions of gender and gender pedagogy, that still needs to be explored. First of all, I thought that what our institute, I have always conceived of our task of transforming existing knowledge, creating new knowledge, consciousness raising, and I really like that old radical feminist concept, consciousness raising, engaging with our communities, both on the campus and off the campus, and that engagement including both activism and outreach. And I've always felt that these institutes, which is why I feel we could not just be another department, had to have that activist and outreach component central to everything that we did, which is why at St. Augustine we institutionalized the outreach and research officer, which I felt was very important to ensure that we had someone whose responsibility it was to keep us engaged with our communities. And maybe this is because my supervisor was Maria Mies. And I remember her saying to me, Rhoda, and in those women's studies without a movement is dead. And I've been thinking about other places where, in fact, people are saying that these programs are dying. And I do think that our programs need that engagement, that continuous movement. We, I think, do not have the luxury of not engaging with our communities, because